Hi everyone, this is Nate, and we are continuing our series of discussions with the major arcana of the Tarot. And I am continuing our program. We've done already Justice, we've done Temperance, we've done the Chariot. And so today I am going to pull some cards and a card actually. And we're going to see what is the theme for this conversation with the Tarot. So let's look at who wants to come to have a conversation with us. All right, the tower. So I am going to focus this session, this conversation, using this book from Alejandro Jodorowsky and Marianne Costa, The Way of Tarot. You can see this here. And so we're going to start to talk about the the tower. So let's have a look here. The tower, or in French, La Maison Dieu, which is the opening, the emergence of what was imprisoned. So you could look at this card and looking at a prison and something that was really kept inside, and you have that explosion, right? The emergence of what was, in the prison. The message of this card is one of great spiritual comfort. However, until the restoration of the Tarot in Marseille, people generally saw Arcane 16 as a reference to the Tower of Babel. The most common interpretation when we get the Tower is we usually, I wouldn't say freak out, but it's a shock when we get the Tower in a reading. And so people usually think of, punishment of pride, catastrophe, divorce, earthquake, ruin, losing it all. It has that very strong negative feeling. Um, Oswald Worth, the creator of the tarot of the medieval printmakers, imagine a king and a queen falling from a tower and added a brick shattering the woman's head. A brick shattering the woman's head. So a very dramatic event. If you carefully read the passage from the Bible discussing the Tower of Babel, you will see that its destruction is far from being a catastrophe. Rather than a punishment, the destruction of the tower is a solution to a problem. The deluge now finally ended. The entire planet, abundantly irrigated, has become fertile, but very few human beings remain. So not a lot of people remain. Instead of dispersing to cultivate the land, they are joining forces to construct a tower that will climb into the heavens, and with the idea of reaching God. In principle, this construction is intended as an act of love, a desire to know the kingdom of the Creator. Now, the Creator, knowing this plan cannot be realized, doesn't strike the tower with lightning, nor does he cause any of its inhabitants to fall from it. He merely creates the diversity of languages to separate them. This is a blessing more than a punishment. So, really, how we can look at this tower, it's like, there are some positive meaning, like the overflow, the expression. It could even be a celebration to uncork. Yes, exactly. The tower is that feeling when you open a bottle of champagne or wine, um, an explosion, but it's not necessarily negative. In different versions of the Tarot, this tower doesn't have a door. That's true. In mine, it doesn't have a door. I see more of a window. The restoration work not only allowed us to find the tower's door again, but also the three initiatory steps leading to it. So in the old days, there was a door. and it's kind of have that portal energy. The house, the tower, is not the house of God. It is the house, or it is God. It's the, when you're talking about certain event, an act of God, this is basically what you get from this tower, an act of God, an earthquake, a thunder. The tarot indicates quite clearly with the flesh-colored bricks that this tower is our body. You could see the body and you could see the head here with a crown. And a body contains the deity. The half-open door allows a yellow light to escape. The body is filled with the light of consciousness. The figures are not in the middle of falling, quite the contrary, they're on the ground. There is a little bit of a hangman energy with those two people where they change their perspective. They're kind of upside down. The intellect, the mind, is looking directly at nature. One of the feet of the figures is pointed towards the sky. His steps are leading him to the mind. So what can we see here? We see the hand. We see the hand of the people trying to touch a plant here. I think that's very interesting. It's almost like trying to touch the nature. It's going back to nature. That explosion, that event, that earthquake, that lightning is shifting people down, and they're basically trying to touch nature, going from who they represent, the vital force, always has a sense of nature. Remember that this card 16, it's between the devil 15 and the star 17. And so it's the creation that takes the material form for rebirth with a star later on. Remember that also this number here, 16, it's 10 plus 6, which is the Wheel of Fortune plus the Lovers. So it has a theme of union. Um, it's just a very interesting aspect of union between human, God, and nature. So the tower really talks about the emergence of something that was in a prison. It could be a residential move, a separation, a moment of great expression, the desire to leave the country possibly, or a secret being revealed. It just go, wow. It could be a lightning strike. Something just comes very suddenly. It could talk about separation, um, giving birth. Um, it could also have that expulsion, something that just release and gives birth to something. It's like there's that explosion, an expropriation, a rupture, a difficult birth, um, an earthquake, a natural catastrophe. I really like what they're saying here. The principal message of the tower could be stop looking for God in the sky, find God on earth. So That's an interesting take here. They're looking down, and Earth is nature, and that's why they're holding the green leaves. So there's a connection with God here. That explosion, that life force is very human. And it's also a reflection of a connection with nature. So now we're getting into the part where the card speaks to us. So I'm gonna say I as if I'm, the tower. I am the temple. The entire world is an altar I make sacred. I am the temple. My life, like yours, proves at every heartbeat that the world is divine, that the flesh is a living celebration, and life is a never ending construction. And I would say destruction, construction, destruction, construction, a cycle. With me, you will know the joy that it is the key to the sacred. I'm life itself, the transformation and the reconstruction, the flame and the energy of everything alive, of all matter and all spirit. If you wish to enter me, you must rejoice. Cast into the fire the infantile whims of sorrow and fear, and ask yourself every time you awake, what shall I celebrate now? Very interesting. But what shall I celebrate now? Almost a sense of giving gratitude. I am the cataclysmic joy of living, the permanently unforeseen and marvelous catastrophe. A defense crown once isolated me from the world, a cork of old words. So we're talking about this piece here. The crown, the cork. A defensive crown once isolated me from the world. A cork of old words covered my mind, and clouds of crystallized, mummified, sclerotic feelings cast a shadow over my heartbeats and prevented the light from emerging. So that was like, you have to think, like, even if it feels dramatic, the light can open up, can shine. We're opening. It's like the bubbles, are opening are coming through from the opening of a bottle. You release the lock. A thick cloak of desires transformed my appetite for life into a jailer. I was flesh without God, consuming itself in the flames of its own existence. My ego converted into a prison. Despising myself, isolating myself, believing I was defending an inner territory belonging only to me. Who was I in the darkness of this tower? Master of what? That sense that everything would go back to normal, that routine. We realized that there was so much more going in that were locked up. What was my appearance? My false identity. I was nothing but the rarefied air of an egotistical obscurity. And suddenly, from both inside and outside, a nameless force emerged. That love that sustained all matter. My top opened as well as my inmost depth. The combined energies of heaven and matter coursed through me like a hurricane. I knew the burning of the center of the earth, the light from the center of the universe. I received the vibrating universal axis. I was no longer a tower, but a channel. Then the joy of union burst forth. The high was low, the low was high, like a queen bee. I began to engender joyful beings. God was in me, and I was only worshipful matter. I knew that I could burst, that each of my breaks would travel to infinity like a bird. I knew that everything imprisoned in matter gushed through me. I was the central pillar of a cosmic dance. I was quite simply the human body in full reception of its original energy. Wow, so it's an extreme sense of explosion, of energy, of light, of life. I really, I already changed my view of this card. We often see it as very negative, but I think we forget to speak of that freedom, the release aspect, that it's almost gives such a sense of freedom and also that connection with the divine, the universe, going back to nature. And so I would be curious to know what you think of the tower in light of those words from the tower, because I feel that they're really a sense of freedom and release that we don't often talk. It it's true that when you're in a prison, for example, of your own lies or something you can't talk about, or a secret or something that you want to keep private, you feel how that pressure keeps coming and coming and coming. And the release of this information gives you that sense of opening to new beginnings with the support of the universe. So I hope that is making sense to you. I'll be curious to hear your thoughts on this sometimes dramatic card and keep me posted. Please share, like, subscribe. Always happy to hear from you. Thank you.